Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 most evil musicians. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we'll be looking at British musicians that have tainted their careers by committing some of the most horrendous crimes and actions. Have you ever met any of these infamous faces? Let us know in the comments below. Number 10. Morrissey. The former The Smiths frontman has made a tirade of grim comments over the years, especially when it comes to vegetarianism. After he won a settlement from Channel 4 for unauthorized use of his song in a Gordon Ramsay show, Morrissey stated that Ramsay may stick his head in a microwave after hearing how much he won. Next, Morrissey suggested Jamie Oliver put one of his own children forward for human consumption due to promoting young meat in recipes. Plus, in 2010, when being interviewed by The Guardian, Morrissey called China a, quote, subspecies. Morrissey has also been accused of prejudiced opinions by blaming immigration for the disappearance of the British identity, as well as supporting far-right policies and politicians. Number 9. Ian Dury. Ian Dury had a rough start to life. After all, he contracted polio when he was a kid and felt the effects for his remaining days. On top of this, Dury was known as an alcoholic. When out with his bandmates, a drunk Dury would pick the biggest person in the bar and start a fight to see if they would attack a disabled person. If they would, Dury's bandmates would have to step in and deal with the consequences. Even his son Baxter has stated that due to Dury's acid tongue, quote, there was a lot of mental violence. He would know better than anyone, considering Baxter was left with a minder in the shape of a 6'7" tall substance abuser nicknamed the Sulfate Strangler. Number 8. Eric Clapton. In recent years, Eric Clapton has gone from a legendary musician to become the anti-lockdown, anti-vaccine, conspiracy performer that speaks about his idea of freedom a lot, which is irresponsible. But Clapton has a history of making terrible opinions. In 1976, whilst performing in Birmingham, an intoxicated Clapton went on a horrendous rant. First, he asks foreigners in the audience to identify themselves. Then, he tells them they should leave the venue and the country. He then stated his support for the far-right politician Enoch Powell before using a load of xenophobic language. On top of this, he also admitted he was extremely violent during his marriage to Patty Boyd. In later life, Clapton blamed alcohol and other substances for his racist opinions and horrid actions. Number 7. Brian Jones. The Rolling Stones are one of the best bands of all time, yet one of their founders is rarely talked about, even though he came up with the band's name. That being Brian Jones, and there's probably a reason for that. While on tour with the Stones in 1965, Jones met Italian actor Anita Pallenberg. However, Jones was abusive to Pallenberg during their relationship. At one point, whilst in Morocco, Jones broke his hand when he struck Pallenberg's face. Keith Richards saw this happen and took Pallenberg away from Jones. The two would form a long-term relationship, and Pallenberg became a muse for the Rolling Stones. Erratic behavior and addiction issues led to Jones being forced out of the band in 1969. Number 6. John Lennon. This one may be a tough pill to swallow for many. Nowadays, John Lennon, one of the brains behind the Beatles, is seen as a legendary musician and person, but his past is a little dodgy. His first marriage to Cynthia Powell was turbulent as Lennon was filled with jealousy. In one incident, he hit her for dancing with another guy. After breaking up with him, Powell eventually took him back. While he didn't hit her again, he allegedly instead resorted to mental abuse and later cheated on her with Yoko Ono. After that, Lennon pretty much abandoned his child Julian to Powell's care. Julian later said he felt more of a connection to Paul McCartney than to his own father. To top it off, after his passing, Lennon left very little to Julian in his will. Number 5. Michael C. Brewer. The Chatham School of Music has produced many talented musicians, such as Jennifer Pike, Olivia Cheney, Wayne Marshall, and Grant Llewellyn. Yet the name Michael C. Brewer is a dark mark on its history. Brewer was a teacher there and later founded the National Youth Choir of Great Britain. In 2013, he and his wife, Hilary K. Brewer, were found guilty of indecently assaulting young pupil Frances Andrade between 1978 and 1982. A week after she gave evidence, Andrade sadly passed away from an accidental incident. Brewer was sentenced to 6 years in prison and was later stripped of his OBE, while his wife got 21 months behind bars. Number 4. Sid Vicious. After helping popularize the punk movement with the Sex Pistols, Sid Vicious's legacy would be tainted in 1978. The morning after a heavy party, Vicious's partner, Nancy Spungen, was found slain in their hotel room with a stab wound. Vicious's account of the night changes. One moment he remembers stabbing her after a disagreement, the next he claims Spungen fell onto the knife. Then he doesn't remember anything after consuming loads of alcohol and substances. After getting bail, Vicious went to a nightclub and made a pass at a woman. Her boyfriend, Todd Smith, took exception, so Vicious attacked him with a broken beer bottle. Vicious passed away before any of the cases went to court. Number 3. Gary Glitter. In the 70s and 80s, Gary Glitter was one of the leading figures of the glam rock style of music. Yet by 1999, that all changed when Glitter was found guilty of downloading explicit content of underage individuals. He received a 4-month sentence. After bouncing around the globe, he eventually settled in Vietnam. There he was arrested on charges of committing obscene acts. He got 3 years in prison. On his release, he was barred from entering many countries, so he had to return to the UK. By 2015, due to the grim history of Jimmy Savile coming out and Glitter's connection to him, Glitter was found guilty of several offenses against children. He was sentenced to 16 years in jail. Number 2. Dave Holland. He's not exactly a household name, but drummer Dave Holland was a part of iconic heavy metal bands such as Trapeze and Judas Priest. And in 2004, he disgraced his reputation by taking advantage of his drumming student, a 17-year-old boy with learning difficulties. Holland was found guilty of assaulting his student after the boy detailed the abuse in a letter to his parents. Holland was sentenced to 8 years in prison for his horrid crime. He, on the other hand, always claimed he was innocent. Feeling no remorse, he later compared his treatment to those convicted of witchcraft in the 17th century. Number 1. Ian Watkins. In 2012, the Lost Prophets frontman was arrested for numerous charges, including several incidents of assault of underage victims, some of which were only 1 year old, and possessing related indecent images. In court, Watkins pled guilty to lesser charges and not guilty to the harsher crimes. When awaiting sentencing, Watkins called a fan from custody. Watkins joked he planned to release a statement referring to his crimes as mega lols. In the end, during 2014, Watkins was sentenced to 29 years in prison and 6 years supervised release for his horrendous crimes. His co-conspirators, the mothers of his victims, received sentences of 14 and 17 years. Whilst behind bars, Watkins, showing no remorse, attempted to groom a young mother in 2017.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo UK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.